preferable option against that in some extent. First, I want to start with life and death relationship and current state of the world. Firstly, life can be unbearable sometimes, and some people have less reason to live this life compared to us. People suffer from some accidental problems, genetic factors, and thousands of things. But cryonics can be a hope to resurrect in near future for hopeless cases. At least it's better than suicide. At that point, why future why future will have the potential to better from today? Because we are living in best era to living in history. But now we have different kind of problems. If we have the chance to communicate with people who were living 200 years ago, uh, he or she would not understand our conditions in current life. After industrial revolution, our technology have been started to develop so accelerated, and life conditions have become better in the field of health and human rights and justice. We can understand from there life can be better in near future. Uh, Secondly, science can be utilized from cryonics if it succeeds without a brain harm or physical harm. Uh, in experimental side, it can be a milestone and it can change our perspective upon that.
Mm. Hello everyone, I am Mehmet Can. Along with me, Mustafa and Zara, we are going to oppose the idea that chironics are good in general. Um, the importance of this is the fact that the chironics is, uh, from my perspective, is just a fairy tale and going to cause more trouble than it brings good. Because uh, unlike what's have been said, chironics are not going to uh, grant us a better future because most likely uh, the freezed people are going to struggle with um, adapting to the future, thinking that it is extremely hard for a person to adapt to today's world, yet alone to a futures. And if the case, in a case where this time lapse is longer than expected, there might be evolutionary cases where our kind may be under evolved compared to the future humans. And one should not always look at the bright side, the optimistic side. There is not a guarantee that the future humankind is not going to use us as an tools or uh, tools or specimens of experiments, yet alone uh, using the necessary tools and making the necessary payments to revive us. Like there won't be any need for that. They may not need us. This is the first problem: adaptation and our necessity. Humans are really tend to see themselves big, but this may not always be the case. We might not be useful to them, and we might not be revived in a way we think, but we may suffer from experimental purposes. And another problem is that um, along with adaptation, the environment is going to suffer from chironics deeply because there are many people, much more than the world can sustain at this very moment, and in a near future, and with expected rates of uh, increase in human population, it would be chaotic for the world as there would be no possible way to sustain it. And I would like to thank you for listening to me, and I give the floor to the next participant. Thank you.
First of all, hello everyone. I would like to start with refuting Mehmetcan's ideas. Of course, our kind may have problems with the future kinds of humans, but in this way, in the opposite way, they may need us. They may need past humans to solve their future problems. These are just I don't know. These are not guaranteed things. For my argument, I want to start by comparing cryonics to its alternatives. In modern societies, when people die, there are two different methods used to bid them farewell. The dead people either buried or burned. Cremation, I mean, by burning. However, now as a third option, the cryonics process has become a new method that can be done for the deceased person's body. The most significant difference between cryonics and the alternatives is cryonics gives you a chance to come back to life, while burial and cremation result in 100% death. Even if the cryonics has a slightest possibility, it is still a chance. I mean, if we have a choice between death and life, and if the life is the right answer, cryonics seems to be the most logical choice over burning or burying. There are possibilities of cryonics with some problems could arise. These are situations like people who come back to life could have health problems or adaptation problems, like Mehmetcan said. But these are just possibilities. Anyways, if we put all these possibilities, bad possibilities, and guaranteed death to comparison, living despite some difficulties will come up as a better solution than dying. Even a tiny chance of survival is better than nothing, and cryonics gives us that tiny chance. That's all. You can go, Mustafa.
Hello everyone, I am Mustafa and I will refute the technical states. And according to the Article 5 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that no one shall be tortured or subjected to harsh punishment. Another major problem is this actually. Who is to say that individuals in coma are being treated properly, and all dead patients' close relatives will be dead in 6 years? Like, how can a facility be trusted even if it promises to provide effective treatment to all its patients? And there have recently been allegations of maltreatment and frozen human bodies to our clinic facility actually. And my argument is the first about religious beliefs, and the debate over whether cryonics should be considered real or healthcare has sparked ethical and religious debates. If chronic is used, religious views about death and the hereafter may be considered, I think, and religious believers may believe that resuscitation is impossible because the soul has died, and the most religious religions believe that only God can bring the dead back to life, I think. And the second argument is second. Cryonics, as thrilling as it may be, the advancement of society and raises a new set of ethical considerations. How will society be affected if cryonics become a viable choice for immortality? Suspended animation is as previous state, and it may cost a lot of, and the expense of reality have this option. Is this to imply that the reality have access to immortality while the poor do not? Who gets to play such a significant role? This will be detrimental to society and thereby violating human rights, I think, guys. And that's all.
Thank you, Mustafa Mert. And I will refute the ideas of Mustafa Mert and Mehmet Can. Mustafa Mert said it is against the religion. The cryonics are against the religions because most of the religions have the afterlife and such a things. But I believe that the religions of the what people believe is for themselves. You can't force the believe someone to your religion. So if the person thinks it is better than the dying, they could apply for the being cryogenically frozen. And Mehmet Can said, he said the evolution might be changed for the future, but I don't see the cryonics being applied that far along because for the evolution you need a lot of time, and when you look the science is a thing that grows exponentially, which means it like for according to a research, science doubles its size in every 15 year, I believe, something like that, 10 or 15 years. So the cryogenically frozen people will be unfreeze in like 50 years later, I believe. And it will be hard to adapt, of course, but like my teammate says, it is better than to die, and like communities or some things like that could be uh, opened for the people that cryogenically frozen, and the life of a future can explain to them. That's a not so hard problem to solve, I believe. So that's all for my speaking. Thank you to listening to me.
Hello guys, I'm Zara Hamid and I'll conclude my team's point debate and refute some important points of the opposing of the proposition team. So I'd begin with the idea that the proposition agrees to the fact that in future science might get that advanced that we might bring dead to life. But I do agree with the fact that science, technology advances rapidly. But my point is, it is unrealistic to imagine uh, bringing dead to life again, because if we take example of diseases that have been discovered like thousands and thousands of years ago, and they still don't have any cure yet, and scientists are still working on it to get the cure. For example, cancer. Cancer cancer was discovered like thousands of years ago, but we still don't have any cure for it, right? So I think that until we reach the point where we start bringing dead to life, will cancer be even a problem for us? I mean, I believe it is unrealistic to imagine a place, imagine a scenario where you can even cure death, whereas all the reasons, all the diseases that cause death, their cure have still not been found. So by the time we start bringing death back to life, don't you think that cancer and certain problems that tell us that we have like a limited amount of time left on this earth, would they even be a problem at that time? Isn't it unsensible to imagine a world like that? Moreover, I would refute another important point that the proposition agreed on, as proposition 2 said that we have to choose between uh, death and a life, right? We have a little chance to come back to life if we choose cryonics, right? But my idea is that sometimes death death is not actually bad. I mean, if you know that you can be brought back to life, then is your life even worth it? I mean, death brings you don't take things for granted if you know that your life's gonna end at a certain point. Uh, Moreover, as my team member Mehmet Jan and Mehmet Mert, both of them had uh, certain points like increase in population, and would the world even need us at that time? I mean, are we even important to them by that time? Like hundreds and 200 years later, uh, will our existence even matter? We would be lost, right? And we wouldn't have any purpose to live. Like the world would be so different for us, and it would be so hard for us to adapt. And increase in population, as we all know, is always a big problem, and it is hard to solve the problem. So it's better not to increase the population by bringing death back to life later. And the religious aspect, as Mustafa mentioned earlier, uh, I mean, majority of the people on this in this world, they have some religion, right? They're religious, and in common, they know that God has the power to bring back the death, and we humans don't have that ability to uh, to somehow cure death. So yeah, that's all for today. Thank you for hearing me.